Hi everybody! Today we're going to be making a snowman family, so let's get into it. I started off by planing the board I want to use. This reduced sanding time and keeps me from getting as many splinters. This reclaimed wood was really rough when I started. It was textured and gray, but the planer removed the outer layers of the wood, and now it looks brand new. It was such a huge difference, I regret not doing a before and after. Now that that's all done, I sweep up. My next step is to sketch out the design on some wood. To reduce waste, I chose this piece of wood because it's about the width that I want for the largest snowman. To keep things brief, I'm only going to be showing each step once, even though I plan to make 3 snowmen and attach them together. Part of me wondered if after Christmas was too late for snowman content, but it's pretty snowy here, so it seemed fitting. Next, I clamp down my wood to the work surface. The more stable the material is, the easier it will be to handle the jigsaw, and it will prevent the blade from binding. As always, remember your safety equipment. Then I began cutting, following the line with the notch on the jigsaw. It helps to keep a firm pressure on your tool to keep it from vibrating too much, but don't rush through the cut and let the saw do the work. Feel free to make relief cuts as needed, or you could drill holes on the angles that you think could be a problem. I did the former here, but either technique would work. There's something I find satisfying about the way the heel of the saw comes around while making the curved cuts. It's a bit more difficult to control the saw while cutting the curved lines. A thinner blade will make this easier, as well as making sure that you have a blade that cuts on the upstroke. If you haven't used a jigsaw before, I would definitely recommend practicing a few simple shapes on some scrap wood to get the feel for it. Once you're done cutting out your shapes on the one side, flip it over and we'll start on the next side. It took me a few tries to get the hang of the curved lines in particular, as well as building some confidence while using it. Once you have a little practice, the jigsaw is a really fun tool to use that's versatile for many different projects. You can even change the angle of the base to cut on an angle or add a bevel to your work. Once the basic shape is cut, you can go back in and tidy up any pieces you missed, or cut out the places where you did the relief cuts. I tried to be extra careful while I worked on the brim of the hat. The piece was narrow and it would easily split along the grain if I applied too much pressure. To finish up, I cut off the ends. And here are the basic snowman shapes I ended up with. I decided to go with 3 sizes so it looks like a little snowman family. Now with all the shapes cut out, we sand each one. This prevents splinters, looks nice, and lets the paint glide smoothly onto the wood. During this step, you can also round out any sharp angles you have. I'm using a detail sander, but you could also do this by hand using sandpaper. It's best to start with a coarse grit sandpaper and move to a higher grit in stages. I started with 60 grit and moved gradually up to 150. This also removes any pencil marks left over from drawing the design. A little trick I like to use is when the sandpaper is all used up, I turn them so the soft side is touching the wood and use them to cushion and protect what I'm working on while it's being held in the clamps. After that, I start drilling holes to set the arms into. I use a drill bit slightly larger than the sticks I'm using. Then I move on to painting. I started with a white base, to which I am now adding a light blue shade to add dimension and interest to the snow. It could be fun to try with different colors for rainbow snowmen, but I would avoid yellow. Then I make sure to blend it out until it's nice and smooth. Don't forget to cover the sides. I matched them to the blue shade I used on the outline so it blends seamlessly. Depending on your paint, you may need to add an extra coat for coverage. Once I'm happy with the shading, I move on to the details. I create an almost black dark gray for the hat. Once they're all hatted, I move on to the details. I use a small brush to add the eyes. Hovering my hand over the surface prevents my hand from smudging the wet paint while I work. Oops! If you make a mistake, you can paint over it easily. For this reason, I'd suggest saving some of your color you used for the snow, so you don't need to try to match it later. There, that's better. I wait until the patches dry before I get the other eye finished so the colors don't bleed together. I use a series of small dots for the mouth. I get a good amount of paint on a small brush and dab the paint onto the wood. If you aren't getting good results, try getting more paint on the paintbrush. Now that that's done, I use a long brush and orange to do a carrot for the nose. I find that rotating the brush as I pull it along and gradually decreasing the pressure helps me to get a fine point. Then I move on to assembling the snowman. I apply some glue to the sticks and carefully set them into the holes I drilled. When I was planning my design, I decided to collect some twigs for the arms. This will give it a look which I think is cute and unique. However, they will be delicate and likely to break when I store them for the summer. If that happens, I will collect some new twigs. Then I can just bore out the holes and glue new arms on next year. Looking back, I would do this step last if I were to do this again. I had to remove some of them to turn the piece over when I wanted to screw them together. Overall though, I'm really happy with how they turned out. Once I have it just right, I find some screws the length that I'm looking for, and I decide where I want to put them. Looking good! Now I get some painter's tape. Then I pick out a drill bit about the same size as the screws I want to use. I can wrap the tape around the drill bit at the length of the screw. This helps me to mark how deep to drill the hole, then I don't have to worry about drilling straight through the wood. Since I have the tape handy, I also mark off where I want the screws to go. This helps me to make sure I drill into the front snowman cleanly. I could also mark it properly, but the screws will be hidden, and for a fun project like this, I'm okay with eyeballing it. Then I mark off the edges of the front snowman so I can set it into place easily if it gets misaligned when I flip it over. Then I carefully turn them over and set them back into position. Next, I clamp them together using a thin scrap of wood to protect the front of the design. If you don't protect the wood when you clamp, you can sometimes end up with a circle imprint from the clamp. Now I'm ready to pre-drill my holes. And now I can add the screws. Now that that's all done, remove the tape, turn it over, and enjoy your snowman family. Thanks for watching! Bye!